guys, it's Phil coming back at you in another video. Today, I'm back. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. Hopefully, everyone's doing well, practicing self-care, not letting one thought, one situation, one person take them outside of what they know to be true, and continuing to challenge all the things that are pushing against you and doubling down, become the next best version of yourself, and not letting one thought, one situation, one person take you outside of what you know to be true. And I know exactly 46 people did just that, because that's how many people went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and got the job done since my last video. And a lot of people on this list were doubting themselves, beating themselves up, wondering if they should change their exam. It wasn't their first time. And they're still wondering, man, should I be a social worker? Am I going to get enough right? Because I'm not getting enough right on my practice exams and all those things. And they doubled down and challenged those different thoughts and was like, you know what? The only way that I can decide if this is going to occur or not is actually going through it, and not just going through it just to get through it, but actually growing through it, becoming the best possible version of themselves. And they win the exam, kicked it directly in the chest to get the job done. And they are as follows: Juliana W., Addie G., Katie B., Michelle D., Christy, Pamela L., Lauren P., Shyla D., Jennifer B., Carla C., Karan T., Beverly R., Christina P., Kamala R., Jacqueline, K.H., Rochelle R., Trina N., David B., Keely R., Alexis R., Chris H., Wanda P., Triana A., Kelly H., Adela Y., Tammy S., Rachel H., Devonna C., Angela K., Tanisha D., Tra L., Pamela P., Leah B., Nina M., Allison C., Julie H., Ike T., Jojo D., Rachel S., Joel S., Catherine L., Sarah S., Kiana L., Mariella G., and Stephanie S. So excited, man, because a lot of people on that list were, like I said, beating up on themselves, turning themselves down. Even days before the exam were like, man, should I reschedule? I'm not getting enough right. Or, man, I passed the practice exam, but is the practice exam enough to determine whether I'm going to pass the real exam? So if you're in that same boat, keep reminding yourself, the only thing that dictate whether you pass or fail is the actual exam. And don't let one thought, one situation, one person, any practice exams or anything take you outside of what you know to be true, because you're the only thing that is going to go in the exam and determine whether you pass or fail. Because you can't determine the questions that you're going to see on the exam, but you can determine what strategies, techniques, and things that you're going to do when you're actually inside of the exam. So my mind is entirely blown that people are going to the exam, doubling down, and I'm not surprised when people pass the exam. I'm surprised when people come out and be like, man, I didn't think that I was going to do so well on the exam, etc. Because a lot of people went in the exam was like, all right, man, I'm not sure if I can do this, and then they went out and destroy the exam. And if you want to rep and rock with me as well, the easiest way to do that are the paid study groups that I have on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. They can't kick us out. I'm the host, and the length of time for those sessions ranges from 4.5, 5, sometimes 6 hours long, depending on the topic. And then if you're not able to stay for the entire session, that's 100% possible to get the recording as well as the materials to review at your own leisure. In the next Sunday study groups coming up are as follows: 129, practice questions, going over the different types of questions that you can see on the exam, different myths that people spread about the exam, tips that I find most helpful for people to keep in mind as they're going inside of the exam, and then going through the 6-step process that I recommend everybody utilize while breaking down the questions, and then going through 15 practice questions. And I always say, do not expect to come into the session to get every single question right, because the questions that I write are tending to be more difficult than the ones on the actual exam. So a lot of times people come in and be like, man, I didn't get as many questions right, I'm ready to reschedule. And I would say, no, the goal is for you to learn from every single question, not for you to prove whether you're ready or not for the exam. The next one after that is 2.5, ethics. So going through the code of ethics, breaking it down, giving you practical ways to be able to recognize and apply it, not memorize anything within the code of ethics, but being able to mobilize it within inside of questions as well as real life practice. And then going through subpoena versus court order, and then 10 practice questions related to the topic. The next one after that is 2.12, going over human developmental theory. So Erickson, Piaget, and Kohlberg, not ways to memorize any of the concepts, be able to recognize and apply them and mobilize them and give you real life examples to keep them in mind as you're going through the exam and going through practice questions related to those. The next one after that is 2.19, acronym and practice questions. So going over the acronym that I encourage people to utilize if it makes sense for you: safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, and intervene. Going over the different types of questions that you can see on the exam, going over the 6-step process that I recommend that you keep in mind as you're breaking down the questions, and then going through the acronym, and then 10 practice questions related to it and applying the acronym, not ways to memorize anything, but be able to actually be able to apply the concepts as well as the strategies and techniques. The next one after that is 226, DSM-5 adults. So going through the personality disorders, the schizophrenia spectrum, the differences between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorders, going through the medications, and then going through practice questions related to those. And the next one after that is 3.5, research, program development, and program evaluation. So going over the different types of research, the different components within research, going over the stages of program development and how those things can differ from other characteristics that you can see on the exam, and then peeling it back and going through program evaluation, identifying how you can evaluate a program and how that is going to be different than other concepts that you can see on the exam, and going through different practice questions related to those. If you want any information related to the Sunday study groups that are at 7 p.m. Eastern time, again, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title, and it'll have all of the links to my calendar and all of the different pieces of information and ways to be able to connect to me. And as I stated, if you're not able to attend the sessions live or stay for the sessions the entire time, these sessions are recorded so you can review them at your own pace and leisure and be able to still rep and rock with me, as well as I still offer individual tutoring. So if you want to directly interact with me and better understand your process of breaking down questions, better parse through your experience with going through the exam and different ways to improve, or just going over concepts related to the exam, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description. It's my pleasure to be able to help in any capacity that I can, as well as the one-day course is coming back, and the one-day course has been the most successful thing that I've ever done. Why? Because it's, one, giving you the most amount of time that you can spend with me, two, giving you the mixture of concepts and topics that you can see, not memorizing anything, but being able to recognize and apply them to go on the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done, as well as these are the questions that oftentimes are the most difficult ones that I can construct, because one, it's the most amount of investment that you're providing, and two, I want to make sure that you're not going into the exam expecting it to be easy, but being able to understand and break through and parse through each of them. The one-day course is on 2/11. It's 2 days after my birthday, so if you want to late celebrate with me, it starts at 11 a.m. Eastern time until they kick us out, and that session truly is a mystery how long it's going to be. I typically tell people be prepared for it to be 12 hours, but they sometimes are 13, 14 hours long, and it is a huge blast of a time. So people that have attended are often like, man, this has been incredible. But just like with the Sunday study groups, if you're not able to attend the session the entire time, it's 100% possible to receive the recording as well as the materials after the session to review at your own leisure. In the one-day course is going to go over the tips that I find most helpful for people to keep in mind, the most common reasons why people fail the exam, and what better way to learn what not to do in the exam than from the experiences from other people. In addition to that, we're going to be breaking down a mixture of concepts or topics: subpoena versus court order, supervision versus referral, operant conditioning. We'll go over community organizing. We'll go over the personality disorders, the schizophrenia spectrum, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorders, the medications, the acronym, the 6-step process that I recommend people to keep in mind as they're going through questions, and then going through 25 practice questions. So if you're interested in the one-day course, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title, and it'll send you to my calendar and allow for you to be able to directly interact with me. And for those that do not know, Audible's continue to partner with my YouTube videos and as well as my podcast. If you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. Gives you a free book. So if you want to get information and become the best possible version just like me, audiobooks are the easiest way to be able to do that. So if you want to support me as well as support them, again, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps, or click the link down below in the description. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. I appreciate every single person that has done that already. It's the easiest way to support me, and it costs you absolutely nothing. And if you're wondering, Phil, I want to do that, but what free book should I get? There are a couple that I would recommend: The Alchemist, The Archer, Traumatized, and Outliers. Each of them are going to have lessons in those books that are not just going to help you progress professionally, but personally to become the best possible version of yourself. So again, if you want to support me as well as support them, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys that have already done that. As well as if you haven't already, hit the thumbs up button down below, hit the like button next to the title. It helps other amazing social workers just like you find my videos as well. As well as if you can do me a favor, post a comment down below, something that you're going through, something positive, you went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, or anything, because I don't know about anyone else, but I read every single comment and I try to respond to the comments as much as I possibly can. because it is a way that we can help foster the Fill in the Gaps community further, as well as if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell notification next to it, and it will send you an email every time I upload a video. And you want to be mindful because there's a free study group coming up within the next week. So if you want to get the link and information for that, that is the easiest way to be able to do that. And from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single person that has subscribed to the channel as well, because we have hit 35,000 people that have been interacting with the Fill in the Gaps community. And when I first started doing this, I never thought that we'd have that big of an impact. So from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate everyone that has subscribed to the channel, found benefit, have been doubling down, building themselves up, and going to the exam, kicking it directly in the chest to get the job done. As well as if you haven't already, check out my podcast at Fill in the Gaps on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify, because there is a way to get additional information from me. And I always say from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys, because without you guys, there is not me, and I try my best to give you guys as much as I possibly can. This video is going to be going over practice questions, reviewing practice questions, showing you how to break those things down. And before I get into that, I just want to share some thoughts that I've been having on my mind, or things that people have been talking to me about, or that I want to encourage you to do that. So if this is not your cup of tea, or if you're just trying to look for the practice questions, skip ahead within the video if that's what you're trying to do. And that's a-okay, because I know that people are finding different things or needing different things within their life. So if that's the case, just skip on ahead, and I'll be breaking practice questions down. But for those that are rocking with me heavy, or those that are like, man, Phil, I'm looking for some guidance. I'm really struggling. The exam is not going how I wanted it to. Things are difficult for me, or man, I failed the exam. Things in life are chaotic. I'm not sure what to do. The best thing that I can encourage you to do right now is take a moment for yourself and just sit there and reflect and say, what are the things that are going on around me? And why are these things happening at this moment? And what can I take from that? And I know that's easier said than done, because you may be going through some tough things. You may be having a lot of things on your mind. You may have all these different influences and things and stressors going on. But my biggest encouragement is to recognize and identify what is there and why it's there. And why I say that is because a lot of times we're working with clients, and we say, once you are able to recognize something, you're able to make changes to it. But as humans, in social workers as specifically, we oftentimes are able to help other people identify and recognize what they're going through. But when it's for us, we kind of just put this mask on, or we shadow it, or we intellectualize it and say, like, what are the facts and all these different things, and hide from the things that we're going through and that we need to actually recognize and identify. So that's the first step. Recognize what you're going through and what is influencing what you're saying and what you're believing, and where you're at. And that may be you failing the exam. That may be you wanting to reschedule the exam. That may be you identifying what you need to do for the first time to go in the exam, etc. And everyone's at the same place, but we're all trying to get to the same space. And what I mean by that was, we're all in the same place in life of trying to become the best possible version of ourselves, or trying to unlock something that we've never done before, or we may have failed at something and we're trying to redo something, or we're trying to identify for the first time where we want to go. So we're all in that same place of becoming the best possible versions of ourselves, but the spaces that we're trying to get into are also the same, of pushing past doubt, pushing past shame, pushing past different things that you've been through or that you're going through right now, and that may be influencing where you believe that you can go. So my first recommendation is, again, recognize where you're at and identify what is influencing your perception of where you're at. And because a lot of times I was interacting with a decent amount of people, and I swear my sessions tend to have themes, which is, I'm not generalizing anybody, but at the end of the day, whenever I'm talking to people and they're like, man, Phil, I don't know if I can pass this exam, or I'm not sure if I am able to do this, or should I reschedule, or what do you think I should do? And anyone that's ever talked to me or asked me those questions, I always take a step back and say, what do you think about your situation? And people will tell me different things, like, man, I'm afraid I'm going to fail the exam like other people on Facebook have done, or man, I'm going to fail the exam because of my friend's experience, or I'm going to fail the exam because I've already failed the exam, all these different things. And I was interacting with somebody this week, and they're like, man, Phil, I'm afraid I'm going to fail the exam, but I feel like I'm only going to fail it by 1 or 2 points. And through that conversation, I was like, okay, so what makes 1 or 2 points so significant? And where that was coming from is the person has always had this ability to achieve things, but always feeling like they're missing 1 or 2 things, or their environment would always tell them that they're always not going to be good enough regardless of what they do. And what that means is they're not afraid of failing. They're not afraid of failing because they know that if they tell themselves they're going to fail, it's inevitable and they'll prove that thing right. What that person was really saying is that they're afraid of being successful. They're afraid of getting success and somebody else saying that their form of success or what they believe success is not the right thing, and that they need to hide what they want to do or hide who they are in order for everyone else to tell them what to do. And I hear that all the time. Man, Phil, I'm doing this other program. I'm doing this program. Phil, I've been repping and rocking with you, but I just got this other book or program just to make sure that I understand everything. And it's like, well, what are you getting from that other program? And what was the purpose of that? And oftentimes what it boils down to is, Phil, I trust that what you're doing is correct. I trust what people tell me is correct. But to a certain point, I don't trust myself to do what I think is best. And I always compromise who I am based on the feedback of other people. And if you're in that boat, it's like, okay, that's okay. And what I mean by that is it's okay to have that tendency, but it's up to you to decide whether you're going to invest and trust in yourself at this moment. Because if you think that you can just connect yourself to other people, or you think that you can just listen to what everyone else tells you to do and you're going to get your dreams and goals accomplished, it's not going to be the case. Why? Because if you're doing something for somebody else, or if you're allowing for somebody else to guide where you're at, you're pretty much telling them they can take control of your situation. And you always have to go back to that person for the reassurance or advice or guidance that they provided you. However, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get advice or guidance from other people. But what you need to do over time is to say, how do I make this sustainable for myself? And is this piece of information that I'm getting from this person actually helping me or harming me? Because as humans, we're typically going to attract ourselves to people that are going to tell us the things that we actually want to hear and that are going to co-sign the decisions that we're making. When we know if we went to the people that cared about us, or we went to the people that were repping and rocking with us heavy, they would check us and say, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing these things? Because it's not actually adding up to where you need to go. So that's where, as a person, if you have people around you that are influencing how you make decisions, or you're letting your own mind or your emotions take you through the emotions, you got to say, you know what? I'm taking the feelings out of the equation. I'm taking my emotions out of the equation, and I got to execute. Because the only thing that I can do is truly execute on what I think. My thoughts are only thoughts until I put action into them. So it's all right to have a thought. It's all right to have a feeling, but what you really got to do is execute. You got to show up and say, this is the decision I'm going to make regardless of how I feel that day. It doesn't matter what I feel. It doesn't matter what everyone else feels. I got to show up and do me and execute on the things that I think is right. I don't care what anyone else says. That's why when I'm working with people and they're like, man, I'm afraid I'm going to fail, it oftentimes is they're not afraid they're going to fail. They're afraid that they're going to be successful, but it's not that they're not wanting to be successful. It's if they become successful, can they maintain it? And is the goalpost for success going to move? And are they going to have to change who they are or compromise their identity more in order to be accepted by people that will never accept them at that given moment? So that's what I'm saying is, first, recognize and identify the influences within your situation. Second, come to terms and say, my fears and my emotions are just taking me through the emotions or creating situations that are fake and not real and trying to protect me from something that I'm not actually going through, but in order to keep me in the same place, because if I stay in the same place or never gain any additional skills or different opportunities, it's predictability. I know it's predictable for me. It is predictable for me to be in that space and place and to be in that moment. So if you're in that moment of like, man, I don't really want to be that successful because I'm not sure what comes after it. You weren't sure what was going to come after it when you first started this journey. You weren't sure what was going to come after when you went in the exam, if you've ever been in the exam. But you have to be willing to take the shot in order to get the rewards. You can't do half-butt stuff and get the full rewards. You can't do half the effort or half the moment and get the full fruit. You have to be able to identify and say, what are the things I'm doing? What are the things I'm not doing? But also, what are the things I'm telling myself that are no longer true, I don't have to protect myself from those situations any longer. So if you're in that mode of like, man, I'm afraid this is going to occur, where are the facts in the situation? What are the proof pieces that you have? Because in order for you to identify and substantiate the case that you can't do this, you have to have proof without a shadow of a doubt that that's going to be the case. Because if you were accused of a crime, or you were accused of an ethical dilemma or concern, you'd have to show proof for why you did the things that you're doing. So you have to identify and drag the proof out and the evidence out for what you're telling yourself before you convict yourself of something or convince yourself of something that is not actually going to be substantiated at that given moment. But you're too close to yourself to identify the real facts, because it's easier for you to identify the things that people have told you, or for you to reference things that have been in the past, than for you to actually live in the moment and embrace the things that you've got at this given moment. Because some of us will glamorize or some of us will degrade our past based on what we've been through and what people have told us about ourselves and what we can bring to that table at that given moment. So that's what I'm telling you. Get around the right people, but get around the right situations. But if you know it's not right, or you feel it's not right, or you feel compelled to change up based on the result of something, you got to really ask yourself, am I changing up because it's a necessity? Or am I changing up because it feels like it's not right, but it's actually the best right thing for me at that given moment? Because every time you're making a change, it's not going to feel comfortable. Every time you're doing something that's going to be beneficial to you, it's not the most pleasurable thing, but it's not the thing that's going to be most pleasurable or the easiest route that is going to create the most sustainable gains, because if you get something easy, you're not going to respect it or appreciate it at any given moment. The second thing you want to keep in mind, beyond, again, reflecting on and recognizing what's there, 2, identifying what are your thoughts and what is influencing where you're at. Get past this thing of perfectionism. Honestly, I talk to people every day. Like, man, Phil, I'm not getting as many things right on the practice exam. Or, man, I'm not getting 100%. Or, man, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. But what are you doing? Honestly, what are you doing? Like, what are the things that are going well? Because it's easy to pick out the things that you don't think are going right. It's easy for you to go on that diss track on yourself and say, man, these are the things I'm not doing, or man, this is what this app is telling me, or man, this is what this program's telling me, or this is what this thing's telling me, or man, this is the robotic thing that I should be doing, or man, I'm not studying enough, or man, I'm not doing as much as this, or da da da, and then driving yourself crazy. But you don't realize that if you are looking to be perfect, you are in the wrong game. Because nobody on the panel is perfect. Nobody on this plane is going to do the right thing every single time. And that's not the goal. The goal of this exam is not to be perfect. The goal of our profession is not to be perfect. Our purpose within this exam and our purpose within our field is to be imperfectly perfect, doing the best right thing for yourself. And whenever you interact with a client, you're not about to break something over your knee because your client's not perfect. You're not about to flip the table and go wild when you don't get an answer right. And if you're in that mode of reactionary, like, man, it's the results, it's the scores, it's the things that are going to drive me to be in the exam. What you're really doing is convincing yourself that if I do what everyone else is telling me to do without even critically thinking, going to first, next, best, most, should, going to feelings, gather information, CPS, APS, all these wild things that people will automatically tell you, man, I'm eating cereal and doing all these different methods and all this wildness. It's like, bro, what do you think? Because if you're in the exam not thinking, then what are you doing? Like, if you're in the exam just going through the motions, it's like, bro, you're paying too much money to just go through the emotions. You're not just being like, all right, I'm not going to read it fully, or I can half read it. Don't do half-butt stuff and try to get the full result. Because it doesn't matter how you feel. It matters what you do. Because it's not going to be a good day every day. You're not going to have everything going the right way all the time. So that's the thing is, you should not be getting all the results and looking to be confident. And don't nobody take that out of context. It's not saying I don't think that you should need to be confident for this test, but the goal is no longer to be confident. Anybody can be confident for a moment, but if you get another experience, your confidence could tank. However, we're going to be striving for competence. Because if you are not feeling in the best way, or you're not feeling good about what you're supposed to be doing, but you've been doing the strategies and techniques and building that muscle memory, regardless of how you feel, you're going to be in the game and ready to execute. They're going to be ready to be like, all right, well, I don't feel good right now. It doesn't matter how I feel. Do I have the skills and abilities to go in and do everything that I need to do? Do I have all these things tied together in order to do the next right thing and that I think is going to be right? Because your feelings can make you say, man, I'm going to fail the test. Or man, I think I'm doing this wrong. But how do you know? You haven't even done it yet. You don't get the result until the end. Or if you're going through questions, you're like, yep, I think I'm going to get it wrong. And then you get it right. You act like it's a surprise party, like, I got it right. Yes, you got it right because you executed and did everything that you thought was right. Again, it shouldn't be a surprise when you get it right. It should be a reassurance in saying everything I've been doing is paying off. But again, don't go in cocky being like, I got the answer. I don't even got to look at it. What do you mean? You can't just generalize and assume anything. Assuming makes a butt out of you and me. So if you're trying to be perfect, you got to put yourself on punishment and say, man, I'm demanding more out of myself than the world's demanding out of me. And not to say people in the world aren't striving for perfection, but if you're trying to tell yourself you got to be perfect, what are you trying to tell everyone around you? Probably they got to be perfect and you're willing to gun for them and tell them what they need to be doing. But when it comes to you, you're just going through willy-nilly, not taking any accountability or actions towards what you need to be doing. Because if somebody you cared about made a mistake, you're not about to flip the table on them. You're not about to go cuss them out. What you're about to do is guide them and build them up. But when it comes to you, you get something wrong, you're ready to give up. What are you trying to give up for? You've given too much to yourself at this moment to give up. You sacrificed too much to get to this moment to just throw your hands in the air and be like, yep, got a question wrong. Got 10 questions wrong. I'm not getting enough right on this. Or man, I'm not doing. It's like, what are you doing? In order for you to learn, you must earn everything that you've done up to this point. You must be trying to make more mistakes than you ever had from this point forward, because the mistakes are going to give you the experience. Because in order to have experience, you must experience something at some capacity. But if you're trying to just go through the motions and hoping it's going to be easy street, you're going to be left confused every single time. And that's to say that if you're in that perfectionistic mode, you got to take yourself out and say, I'm more critical on myself than anybody could ever be. And if you're gunning for yourself but not gunning for everyone else, what are you doing? You're creating a deficit within yourself and convincing yourself that everyone else is going to be hard on you just like you're hard on yourself, but nobody else is going to come for you as hard as you are for yourself. But you got to look out for yourself because you're the only person on this planet that's truly going to look out for you. You're always going to have people telling you what you should do. You're going to always have people trying to sell you something. You're always going to have people being like, well, I think, or this is what I... Doesn't matter what they're telling you that you should do because you know yourself better than anybody on this planet. Because you're perfectly you, but what you've been convinced is that what you've been doing is wrong. What you know is wrong, and what you need is all this stuff that everyone else is trying to have you do, which is leading you in to pushing away any of the positive things that you've ever done. All of these things that you've done successful, all of these things that you've had to go through to get to this point, you've pushed those things off and thought they were prerequisites or that they weren't as significant as they are, but you're amplifying all the negatives in your situation. But my best piece of advice is you can have positive things and negative things going on at the exact same time, and that's A-okay. You can be happy and sad at the exact same time. You can be anxious and confident at the exact same time. You can be incompetent and competent at the exact same time. And what I mean by that is because the world is not extremes. You could be experienced, but you may not be the most experienced. But what if you're experienced enough to at least get the task done? But you might be like, well, I don't know it well enough. I'm not Sigmund Freud in the flesh. I'm not Erickson's in the flesh. Or I'm not breaking it down like this person told me to. I'm not doing it. It's like, but are you doing enough to at least meet the requirement? Are you doing enough today that could set you up to get more progress tomorrow? It's not all or nothing. You ain't got to be on your point all the time. But if you're convincing yourself that you have to be in that mode, you're literally destroying everything that you have around you. And again, I'm not trying to tell you that you shouldn't be growing. I'm not trying to tell you that you shouldn't be looking at areas to improve. But if you ain't ever celebrating your victories, but you're amplifying your defeats, what if your defeats are what you should really be celebrating and your victories are the things that you should be critical of to say, what are some things that I can do from these victories in order to take it on into the future? And again, you should celebrate anything that you do, because everything that you do is a step closer to where you think that you need to be, because it's going to get you closer to who you are as an individual and becoming the best possible version of yourself. Because every single day, like I said, is not going to be a good day. Not every single day is going to be you giving 100%, but you're 100% that day. Let's say you have 50% in the tank to give and you give all 50%, you still gave 100%. And what I mean by that is you can only give what you have. You can't go into deficits. You can't go into debt with energy. You can't go into debt with time or focus. But if you're doing too much, because I interact with people and they think I'm nuts when I say, I think you are studying too doggone much. I think you are studying too much information and you're not retaining any of it. You're just checking the box and saying, I studied. And people look at me like I'm crazy because they're like, well, this other person said, or this is making me think, or I need to based on, who is they? I don't care who they is anymore. 100%. I will go against whoever they is and say, is that from a social work perspective? Because the social work perspective is I'm going to assess somebody where they're at this moment and allow for them to become the best possible version of themselves within their functioning, versus me templating somebody and saying, well, this person's doing this. I don't care who that person is. I don't care what that person's doing. Why? Because they didn't go through the same things that you went through, so they can't tell you what you should be doing. So that's what I'm telling you. If you're getting advice or guidance for somebody, you need to make sure that what that person's telling you is consistent with who you are as an individual. Because I'm done with it. I'm done with these programs coming out here and trying to tell you what you should do, and they don't even know who you are, trying to get to understand where you're at, and you're trying to compare yourself to somebody that you're not even meant to be. You're supposed to be running your own race, but you're embracing who they are and then not giving yourself grace and being left out in the dust saying like, man, why am I not doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Because you are so far away from who you are as an individual, and you've compromised and given up everything that you've ever wanted to do based on something that somebody else has told you to do. And that's what I'm telling you. Get control back. Take it from wherever it went and say, I'm going to make the decision that I think is right today. I'm no longer living the life of somebody else. I'm no longer letting these programs beat my butt up. I'm no longer going to compare myself to who I thought I should be or compare myself to somebody in my life because they did not go through the same things that I went through. And even if they went through the same things that I went through, they may not get the same results because they are not doing the same things that I am and getting exposed to the same experience that I am. So that's what I'm telling you. Don't live in that extreme mode anymore. Don't push away the positivities. Don't push away the negativities, but have that balance between the positive and negative and knowing that what you can do is only what you can do. Because some of us are doing way too much for other people, or worrying about other people more than we're worrying about ourselves. But if you do not take care of yourself first, you will not have enough for other people. And if you are taking care of other people over yourself, you are not going to ever get back to giving yourself equal amount because you can't give from an empty deficit bank. You can't go in and get something if there is nothing there. So that's what I'm telling you. So if you have to do an inventory of what do I have to give? What do I have inside of myself? Because you don't have to have everything, but what you have to have is what you need for yourself. You need to truly identify, what do I need and what don't I need? Because you may have stuff in your life that you don't need, or you've outgrown, or you upgraded past. But if you're not going to be honest with yourself, you got to really take yourself to that mode and say, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And that's what I'm telling you. Don't let one thought, one situation, or anything take you outside of what you know to be true. Because at any given moment, anything that you've been through could be a blessing for you. Anything that you're going through right now could be setting you up for something that you didn't think that you needed or didn't know that you needed in order to get to where you wanted to go. So you have to be willing to do that. And another thing you want to look out for is following other people and trying to be them. You might turn into somebody without realizing it. And you may be going down the Farm Girts Road. Man, you may be, are you safe? You may be eating cereal. You may be doing the last sentence. You may be first, next, best, most. You may be doing all these wildness. But if you have a method you know that works, trust it. You got to trust everything that you know to be true. Because I hear all the time, man, Phil, I'm doing what you told me to do, but at the last second, I'm changing up and making sure and doing a different method to make sure. And it's like, you can't make sure of something by switching up what you're supposed to do. You didn't get your social work degree by switching your major and going to a business class, and then they're going to give you a social work degree. It's not going to work. They're two different things. So you have to be willing to do one thing and stick with it. Because the method I teach you is not a shortcut. It's not going with the buzzwords, not going with all these different tricks and traps. It's, I want you to get so much attunement to the question that you're going to stay tuned to the question versus tuning it out and saying, yep, I got it. I'm good. I don't have to put the work in. I don't have to do all this stuff because you're not going to appreciate it worth nothing. So you have to be mindful. Who are you today? Why are you doing the stuff that you're doing? And if you're doing it for somebody else, that's A-okay. But making sure that you're at least keeping your own wealth and your own health and all these different things within inside your mind. Because don't just go through situations. Because in order to go through a situation, you must know how to proceed. But if you don't know better, you're not going to be able to do better. But once you have the information, it's your decision to become informed and do the next right thing for yourself. But if you're growing through something, you're gaining information, you're coming informed, but you're also forming yourself as well as the people around you to become the best possible version of yourself. And that's what I'm telling you is you have to really look out for yourself, but you also have to make sure that you're protecting your energy and where you want to go and no longer letting doubt, letting fear, letting shame, or where you came from or where you want to go scare you or take you outside of what you know to be true. And that's what I'm telling you is deep down, embrace who you are and what you've been through and where you're coming from and all the things that you have, because every part of you is made and formed to go to where you're supposed to be. But if you don't believe that you deserve to be where you're at, you don't believe the opportunities that are in front of you are supposed to be there, or you're not like, man, why me? Or why do I get this opportunity? because you went through what you went through, and you've done the right things, and you've made the right decisions, and you became the right person. It may not be in the right timeline, but if you are doubting yourself and running away from your success, or running away from an opportunity that scares you but could give you everything that you need, you're going to forever wonder, what if? What if I would have done that? What if I would not have done this? All those different things. So don't let doubt creep in. And if you're not feeling excited for this exam anymore, you got to remind yourself why you're doing it. You have to really truly identify, what's this mean? And why is this important? And every single day you should think about that. Every day you should think, why am I doing this? Why is this important? Like, what is this teaching me right now? And it's tough. It's really tough to want to be in a different space and place, or going through difficult things, and still reminding yourself that you can get to that next level. And I just want to say, if you're in that mode, it's tough. Keep pushing, keep going. But also, again, follow the steps. First step, recognizing what's going on, what's influencing where you're at. Stepping away from being perfect. Embracing the positivity and negativity at the same time, but not following anybody else. Doing what you need to do. And like I said, it's tough. It's really difficult to keep all those things in mind while protecting yourself. But also, if you're the person that has always been successful, or been the person that has always had solutions, and you don't feel like you're in the right place because you're not being successful, give yourself credit along the way, because it's not just one thing that's going to make you who you are. It's who you are while doing those things. That's why I always say, it's not who you are based on the productivity and all those things. It's not what you do that makes you who you are. It's who you are while doing it. And it's important to keep that in mind. And like I said, I'm a human. I go through things too. And I try my best to make the right decisions and right moves. So that's why I always say, anything that I'm going through, I'm going to bring to you guys. And to kind of put this in perspective, like, if you've been in my study groups or listened to my earlier videos or podcasts and stuff, like, I don't come from the best situation. I don't come from the best environment. And it's not coming from a place of privilege to be like, all right, just do it and just get past it. And this week in particular really brought that to my forefront. And what I mean by that is, in this week in particular, like, my mom's still going through treatments. There's a lot of stuff going on with that. My brother's back in substance use treatment, and that's always difficult because you want to help people as much as you possibly can. But if you know that process, like, you can't help somebody more than they want to help themselves. And I'm sharing this because you want to remind yourself that why you're doing it. And why I started doing this was to show people where I come from that they can get through anything, and they could get to wherever they want to go. And it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be the easiest process, but you have to show up. You have to keep doing the things that you know are right, but you also have to know what is your responsibility. How much energy should you give to it? How much should you let that define? And all that stuff really brought back a lot of stuff that I went through when I was younger, of always having to be the person that was looking out for everybody, or always having to find a solution for everybody, or always having to be that person that is there, but also being able to suppress tragedies and hard stuff in order to help other people. And it's a lot. And if you're in that boat too, just remind yourself that you can only do what you can do, but you got to give yourself credit. That's why I would say, never forget where you come from, because I wouldn't trade where I came from for anything. But what I will do is continue to do with everything that I can to give back to where I was, but never forgetting, regardless of what I do. And that's why I would say, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. This is a privilege for me. This is an opportunity that I never thought. And if you're in that mode of beating yourself up, doubting yourself, tearing yourself down, or pressuring yourself to do things that you think you should do, rest and give yourself the best opportunity to become the best that you can, and knowing that you can keep striving and driving. And again, that's why I said you can have positivity, but you can also have negativity going on at the same time. And as you said, like, at this point in the video, if you're at this point, you're like, well, yeah, Phil's pumped up, he's motivated, but in the background, there's those things. But I can't let those things insert into this and say, well, life is always going to be doom and gloom. No, because it's not over. Like, the opportunities and situations aren't over. You can go through something that's difficult, but you can learn everything that you possibly can and empower everything that you can. But you have to stay true to the mission that you're on, and know that you are a priority, and that what you do is going to help become where you're supposed to be. And I don't know why those things are happening right now, but I would imagine it was to reorient myself and say, hey, never forget what is important. Never forget what can happen in life, but keep going and keep grinding and keep striving and become the best possible version of yourself to empower and motivate and become an example for people that may not think that they can get to where they want to or can't build themselves up. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Practicing self-care, not letting one thought, one situation, one person take you outside of what you know to be true. Keep building yourself up. And like I say, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. You need anything, drop me a shout, send me an email at berda24gmail.com. Hope to see you in the one-day course, Sunday study groups, any of those different capacities. The rest of this video is going to be me breaking down questions and not going with buzzwords, not going with first, next, best, most, or anything. And if you have made it this point, drop something down below and be like, man, hopefully everything's going well, or something positive about yourself. And for everyone that's like, man, I'm always thinking about you, or positive wishes and stuff, I appreciate every single one of you guys. You need anything, drop me a shout. Take care, be safe. I'll see you guys in the next video. I love every single one of you guys. Keep striving, keep driving, keep doing the next right thing. And for the rest of this video, I'm going to be breaking down questions. But for now, take care, be safe, and peace out, guys. So this portion of the video is going to be me breaking down questions, showing you the process that I recommend people to utilize as they're going through the exam questions. On the left-hand side, there is the acronym box: safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, intervene, and the different types of questions that you can see: recall, application, and reasoning questions. In this video, I'm going to be going over primarily application questions, because those are the types of questions that oftentimes are going to be tripping people up the most. As I'm going through it, I'm going to be highlighting different colors, and a lot of times people are like, man, Phil, what do the colors mean when you're highlighting? They don't really mean anything special in particular, so don't feel like you have to copy the highlighting colors that I do. It's just a pattern that I've identified, and sometimes people are like, Phil, what should I do? So don't overthink the process. Well, let's get into this, see what you guys can do. And as I stated, do not try to get everything right in this video, but try to learn from every single question. The best process that I would recommend, if you're like, man, Phil, I really want to test if I know what I'm doing. A lot of times people find it helpful to pause the video, read the question, and then break down the question on their own, and then hit play, and then have me go through it in the video. So let's start off with this first question. Question 1. A social worker in a community mental health clinic has been working with an 8-year-old boy for the past 3 months regarding bullying that he has been experiencing. At the beginning of treatment, the boy experienced frequent thoughts of suicide, but since being in treatment, he has been able to utilize strategies to reduce the frequency of them. During the most recent session, the boy informs the social worker that he watched porn with his older sister and that he enjoyed it. What is the most likely thing for the social worker to do in this situation? A. Contact Child Protective Services regarding the abuse the boy experienced. B. Contact the boy's parents to inform them of the situation and obtain their perspective. C. Gather more information around what the boy enjoyed about the situation to better understand his perspective. D. Inform the boy that watching porn is inappropriate and that he should avoid doing so in the future. So let's look back at the question, break down the key details. So a social worker in a community mental health clinic, that's who we are and where we are at, working with an 8-year-old boy. So that is our client for the past 3 months in a length of time. Hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at, because time lengths can help determine how long we've been doing things. Is this current information? Is this irrelevant information regarding bullying that he's been experiencing? So that's what brought him in 3 months ago. At the beginning of treatment, in a length of time, hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So 3 months ago, the boy experienced frequent thoughts of suicide, but since being in treatment, he has been able to utilize strategies to reduce the frequency of them. So things have been getting better for him. During the most recent session, in a length of time, hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. The boy informed the social worker that he watched porn with his older sister and that he enjoyed it. What is the most likely thing for the social worker to do in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how you answer the question. And this is one thing that oftentimes gets people confused, is there are programs out there that say, man, if it says first, go with this. If it says next, do this. If it's best, do this. If it's most, do this. They're all the same thing. Why? Because let me show you a trick. If we do this and black this out, I guarantee the answer is going to remain the same. Why? Because the details up here have not changed. So do not let one word dictate how you answer the question. This is going to be an application question. Why? Because it is a client scenario that we have to react to in the best way that we know how. So let's break down each answer choice utilizing the acronym, compare each answer choice back to the question to see what we're looking at in particular. And if you're not somebody that finds the acronym to work for you, that's A-okay, because we can break it down utilizing the details as well. A, contact Child Protective Services regarding the abuse that the boy experienced. This is going to be a safety intervene. Safety, why? Because it's a potential safety issue. Intervene, why? Because it's an action on the social worker's end that we have to help do something in some way, shape, or form. B, contact the boy's parents to inform them of the situation and obtain their perspective. This is going to be an assess. Why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. C, gather more information around what the boy enjoyed about the situation to better understand his perspective. This is a feelings. Why? Because it's getting his direct perspective of what's going on with him for a situation. D, inform the boy that watching porn is inappropriate and that he should avoid doing so in the future. And this one is going to be an intervene. Why? Because it's an action on the social worker's end to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. But it's also bad moves, bad vibes, and we'll let the question determine that in just a second. Let's look back at the question to see what we're looking at in particular. So, quick review. Social worker, community mental health clinic. That's who we are, where we're at. 8-year-old boy, that's our client. 3 months. Ain't no length of time. Hop on top of it, because I'll explain the picture of what we're looking at. So that's how long he's been in treatment regarding bullying that he experienced. That's what brought him in 3 months ago at the beginning of the treatment. Ain't no length of time. Hop on top of it, because I'll explain the picture of what we're looking at. So 3 months ago, the boy experienced frequent thoughts of suicide, but since being in treatment, so for the past 3 months, he's been able to utilize strategies to reduce the frequency of them. So things have been getting better during the most recent session. You know, like the time, hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So what's going on right now? The boy informed the social worker that he watched porn with his older sister, watched porn with his older sister, and he enjoyed it. So keep all that in mind. Let's go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out D. Why? Because we're not just going to look at the boy and say, hey, shame on you for watching porn. You shouldn't be doing that. And bad moves, bad vibes. Why? Because the 8-year-old is just sitting, chilling in the situation. So again, the 8-year-old may have no idea what's going on. And we're looking at the boy being like, all right, you shouldn't be doing this. But we're shaming the boy for what's going on in the circumstances. So D is like, you shouldn't be watching porn. You're only 8 years old. You should be doing all these other things. The older sister is the individual that is introducing it to this 8-year-old individual. So we need to take it at a slower pace. In addition to that, we're going to rule out B. Why? Because we're not just going to jump like a cat that got squirted with water into action and say, you know what? Let me talk to the parents, see what they think about the 8-year-old watching porn with the older sister, and go from there. Why? Because the parents may be like, we had no idea that this was the case. Or let's say there is some sexual abuse that's going on at the home. We're not just going to jump and be like, all right, let me tell the assailants or the perpetrators what's going on and have them determine whether it is appropriate or not. We need to stay in our lane, making sure who our client is and what's going on in the actual situation. So now I'm between A, contact Child Protective Services regarding the abuse that the boy experienced, or C, gather more information around what the boy enjoyed about the situation to better understand his perspective. So let's look back at the question and see what we're looking at in particular. Social worker, community mental health clinic, 8-year-old child, so it is a minor, younger individual, 3 months. Bullying, he was being bullied at school. At the beginning of treatment, he had frequent thoughts of suicide, so that was 3 months ago, but he's been doing the dang thing. Things have been going well. He's utilizing strategies and techniques. Then he tells us that he watched porn with his older sister. So in this circumstance, are we going to ask the child, what did you enjoy about watching porn with your sister? Or this is something that could be viewed as sexual abuse. So in this circumstance, if we paint the picture of this, we have an 8-year-old tells us, hey, I watched porn with my older sister and I enjoyed it. With the first thing that we say, man, what did you enjoy about watching porn with your older sister? And what was the best part of the pornographic film? Or would we take a step back and say, okay, well, sexual abuse is not just somebody making sexual advances or touching a child inappropriately, but it could also be exposing a child to sexually explicit content. So for that reason, we're going to rule out C, because it doesn't matter what the boy enjoyed about it, because an 8-year-old is not able to consent sexually to these activities, and or having an 8-year-old watch these behaviors could actually cause him to have emotional damage and or repeat the behaviors that he had watched on the pornographic films with other individuals, which would be bad moves, bad vibes. So for that reason, we're going to go with A, contact Child Protective Services regarding the abuse the boy experienced. And you may be pausing and saying, Phil, what are you talking about? Child Protective Services is if a parent and or caregiver is abusing a child. And you're 100% correct. However, if we put it into the circumstances, where did the older sister get the pornographic content or information from? And if this older sister is introducing that pornographic stuff to this 8-year-old, there may be other things that are going on in addition to these particular behaviors. Is the 8-year-old being groomed? Are there other considerations that could be going on? So A would be contacting Child Protective Services regarding the sexual abuse, because exposing a child to sexually explicit content is actually considered sexual abuse as well. B is going to be incorrect because it doesn't matter what the parents say, because the parents could deny it or just shun it off and be like, it's not that serious, etc. Because if they're involved in the behavior, they're not going to be like, yep, it was me. They're oftentimes going to be like, oh, wow, thanks for the information. But it's not up to them whether they are actually going to do something or not. C is incorrect because I'm not going to ask an 8-year-old, so what did you enjoy about watching this pornographic content with your sister? Because it doesn't matter what he enjoyed about it, because he's 8 years old and it's things that he's not supposed to be getting exposed to. D is incorrect because we're not just going to shame the boy and say, shame on you. You shouldn't be watching porn. What the heck's the deal? You need to avoid doing that in the future, because it was not his choice. His older sister introduced it to him and he was like, wow, this is really awesome, but we don't know what actually occurred. So we are going to go with A, contact Child Protective Services, not because it just simply says CPS, but because the sexual abuse component of the equation of exposing an 8-year-old to sexually explicit content. So the correct answer here is A, contact Child Protective Services regarding the abuse that the boy experienced. So that's how we look at that question in particular. Question 2. In this one, even before we get into it, I am doing a 3-answer choice question, but don't overthink this. Just because there are some 3-answer choice responses does not mean the exam is easier or more difficult, etc. The content of the question remains the same. So don't let a 3-answer choice question make you feel more excited or demotivated, etc. It is the exact same. Go into this question thinking that it's the same amount of difficulty, same amount of analysis, and respecting the question the same way that you would whether it was 3, 4, 2 answer choices, etc. Question 2. A social worker in a family agency has been working with a 14-year-old boy around issues with anger for the past 3 months. At the beginning of treatment, the boy was getting into fights daily and was at risk for being expelled from school. Throughout treatment, he has been utilizing anger management techniques and has been finding therapy helpful. During the most recent session, the boy reports that his father overdosed on heroin last week and that he's been taking care of his siblings. The boy reports that he's mad at himself because during the last interaction he had with his dad, he told him that he wished he were dead. What would be the best thing for the social worker to do in this situation? A, validate the boy's feelings around his father's death and allow for him to process his thoughts about their last interaction. B, gather information around what the boy meant when he said that he was taking care of his siblings. C, contact Child Protective Services regarding the neglect that the boy and his siblings have experienced. Let's look back at the question and break it down a little bit further. Social worker in a family agency, that's who we are and where we are at, working with a 14-year-old boy, so that is our client, around issues with anger, so that's what brought him in 3 months ago, because we've been doing it for the past 3 months. You don't like the time, hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at the beginning of treatment. You don't like the time, hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So 3 months ago, the boy was getting into fights daily and was at risk of being expelled from school. So that's what brought him in to see us. Throughout treatment, you don't like the time, hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So for the past 3 months, he's been utilizing anger management techniques and has been finding therapy helpful. So things have been going well at this moment. During the most recent session, you don't like the time, hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. The boy reports that his father overdosed on heroin last week and that he's been taking care of his siblings. You don't like the time, hop on top of it, because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So this occurred last week. The boy reports that he's mad at himself. During the last interaction he had with his dad, he told him that he wished he were dead. What would be the best thing for the social worker to do in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how you answer the question. Regardless of what somebody tells you, these words are not going to lead you to the answer. I promise you. Why? Because the details in the question are way more important than first, next, best, most, or should. This is going to be an application question. Why? Because it's a client scenario that we have to react to in the best way that we know how. So let's apply the acronym to each answer choice back to the question to see what we're looking at in particular. A, validate the boy's feelings around his father's death and allow for him to process his thoughts about their last interaction. This is going to be a feelings. Why? Because it's getting the client's direct perspective with him for a situation to better understand where he's coming from. B, gather information around what the boy meant when he said that he was taking care of his siblings. This is going to be a safety assess. Safety, why? Because it's a potential safety issue. Assess, why? Because it's in us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. C, contact Child Protective Services regarding the neglect that the boy and his siblings have experienced. This is going to be a safety. Intervene. Safety, why? Because it's a potential safety issue. Intervene, why? Because it's an action on the social worker's end to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. Let's look back at the question and see what we're looking at in particular. So, quick review. Social worker, family agency, that's where we're at. 14-year-old boy, that's our client around issues of anger. So that's what brought him in 3 months ago. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So that's how long we've been doing the dang thing at the beginning of treatment. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So 3 months ago, the boy was getting into fights daily and was at risk for being expelled from school throughout treatment. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So for the past 3 months, he's been utilizing anger management techniques and has been finding therapy helpful. So things are getting better during the most recent session. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So what's going on right now? The boy reports that his father overdosed on heroin last week. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. And that he's been taking care of his siblings. He's taking care of his siblings and he's taking care of his siblings. And the boy reports that he's mad at himself because during the last interaction he had with his dad before he overdosed, he told him that he wished he were dead. So keep all that in mind as we go through each answer choice. So as we navigate this question, right off the bat, we're going to rule out C. Why? Because C is way too fast. The boy is here 3 months, anger management, based on him almost being expelled from school. He's been doing well with anger management. His father overdosed last week, and he says he's taking care of his siblings. C is like, all right, you're being neglected, and neglect is where someone is willingly or knowingly restricting someone's basic needs, or they're aware of somebody not getting their basic needs met, they're offered services, and they're still not doing so. So we have no evidence that this boy is being neglected. And you may say, Phil, he just said that he's taking care of his siblings. Okay, well, based on that one statement, am I about to jump like a cat that got squirted with water into action and be like, yep, you're being neglected? Because one question we would have within this question is, where's this person's other parent if they have that other parent? In addition to that, are there other people in this person's life that could be assisting them? He says that he's been taking care of his siblings. Is he doing it by himself? Is someone else involved within this situation? So now we're in between A and B. Validate the boy's feelings around his father's death and allow for him to process his thoughts about their last interaction, or B, gather information around what the boy meant when he said he was taking care of his siblings. So based on this, if we look back at the question, it simply said that his father overdosed, not that his father had passed away. So A is going to be ruled out because we're unaware of whether the boy's father is dead or not. He simply just said overdosed. He didn't say overdosed and died, or that he passed away, or any of those things at this given moment. So A is going to be ruled out, and we're left with B, gather information around what the boy meant when he said he was taking care of his siblings. Why? Because if we look back at the question, he's been here 3 months. He's here for anger management. He's been doing well with that. His father overdosed, so we don't know if his father is dead or is he recovering. What are these particular details? It's been going on for a week, and then he's taking care of his siblings, but we don't know. Are you doing it by yourself? Are you guys taking care of yourself? All these different aspects that we would not have an awareness of at this given moment. So A is going to be incorrect because we're not just going to divert away from the fact that this 14-year-old boy is potentially taking care of his siblings by himself, or if there are other things that are going on besides being like, all right, tell me about the death, because his father did not die. So A would be assuming and jumping like a cat that got squirted with water and being like, all right, so you're mad about the last interaction. But again, if you are going with the methods that everyone else tells you to do of just reading the last sentence, A is going to be jumping out and being like, pick me. But we have to make sure that we stay within the context of the entire question at this given moment. And C is incorrect because we're assuming that the boy is being neglected, but he just said he's taking care of his siblings, but we're unaware of why he says that's the case. Does he have another parent? Does he have other supports, etc.? So that's why we would go with B, gather information around what the boy meant when he said that he was taking care of his siblings, to understand, not assume, not jump to conclusions, not get ourselves riled and dialed up, but truly understand what's going on. And it's a safety potential because if he is taking care of his siblings by himself and there are no other adult figures within his life, then we would contact Child Protective Services. But if that's not the case, then we're going to go in another direction and identify where the client would like to go. So the correct answer here is B, gather information around what the boy meant when he said that he was taking care of his siblings. So that's how we look at that question in particular. And again, before we hop into this, the 3 answer choice questions are not easier. They're not harder. They simply are what they are. So don't overthink them. Don't be like, all right, I have a better advantage, because the ASWB on the actual exam, based on what people have told me, there are not that many 3 answer choice questions up to this point, but in addition to that, they're not easier, they're not harder, they just are, because the ASWB is simply just going to be omitting the one answer choice that people are not traditionally going to pick anyway, so it's not really going to be something that is going to be helping you. And I always want to keep repeating that because I don't want to give people false hope, but I also don't want people to feel shame and guilt in the exam if they get a 3-answer choice question and they're unaware of where to go. So let's start off with this question. Question 3. A social worker in a private practice has been working with a 28-year-old male to help improve his anxiety symptoms for the past 4 months. The man has a history of hospitalization associated with self-harming that is often triggered by relationship endings. Throughout his time in treatment, he has been hospitalized 3 times, yet has been coping better with his emotions in the last 2 months. During the most recent session, the man informs the social worker he met a girl on a dating site and that he feels like she wants to date him. What would be the best thing for the social worker to do in this situation? A, explore the pros and cons of engaging in a relationship with the man to allow for him to make an informed decision. B, facilitate discussion around his perspective of dating this girl and the impact it could have on treatment. C, work with the man to identify coping skills that he can utilize to reduce the likelihood that he will self-harm. So let's look back at the question to see the particular details. We're a social worker in a private practice, so that's who we are and where we're at. 28-year-old male, so that is our client, to help improve his anxiety symptoms. So that's what brought him in for the past 4 months. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. The man has a history of hospitalization associated with self-harming that is often triggered by relationship endings. So that is what is often going to cause chaos in his life throughout his time in treatment. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So for the past 4 months, he's been hospitalized 3 times, yet has been coping better with his emotions in the last 2 months. So you don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So half of the treatment time, he's been doing well. During the most recent session, you don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. The man informed the social worker that he met a girl on a dating site and that he feels like she wants to date him. What would be the best thing for the social worker to do in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how answer the question. And again, there are no shortcuts. There's nothing to help you get the answer. This is an application question. Why? Because it's a client scenario that we have to react to in the best way that we know how. So let's apply the acronym D, each answer choice back to the question to see what we're looking at in particular. A, explore the pros and cons of engaging in a relationship with the man to allow for him to make an informed decision. This is an assess. Why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. B, facilitate discussion around his perspective of dating this girl and the impact it could have on treatment. This is feelings. Why? Because it's getting his direct perspective of what's going on with him for this situation. C, work with the man to identify coping skills that he can utilize to reduce the likelihood that he will self-harm. This is going to be a safety intervene. Safety, why? Because it's a potential safety issue. Intervene, why? Because it's an action on the social worker's end to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. Let's look back at the question to see what we're looking at in particular. So, quick review. Social worker, private practice, that's who we are. We're at 28-year-old male. That's our client to help improve his anxiety symptoms. So that's what brought him in 4 months ago because it's for the past 4 months. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. The man has a history of hospitalization associated with self-harming that is often triggered by relationship endings throughout his time in treatment. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So for the past 4 months, he's been hospitalized three times, yet has been coping better with his emotions in the last 2 months. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So he's been doing well for half of the treatment time during the most recent session. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So what's going on right now? The man informed social worker that he met a girl on a dating site and that he feels that she wants to date him. So keep all that in mind. Let's go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out C and take out the safety component. Why? Because if we look back at the question, he has been hospitalized and has a history of doing so, and it's often triggered by relationship endings. But in this circumstance, he states that he met a girl on a dating site and that he feels like she wants to date him. So C would be incorrect because we're not going to be like, all right, you're likely going to self-harm because he only self-harming himself when the relationships are ending. This could be a potentially new relationship. So we wouldn't just jump like a cat that got squirted with water into action and say, all right, you need to protect yourself even before the relationship ends, because that's not what we're doing at this given moment. In addition to that, he has been hospitalized 3 times, yet he's been coping better with his emotions. So he's been doing better in the last 2 months. So we're not just going to jump and be like, all right, you need more coping skills, because he's already been doing the dang thing. Now we're in between A and B. A, explore the pros and cons of engaging in a relationship with a man to allow for him to make an informed decision. Or B, facilitate discussion on his perspective of dating this girl and the impact it could have on treatment. Let's look back at the question. We're in a private practice, 28-year-old male, hoping to improve his anxiety symptoms. 4 months, and he has a history of hospitalization. He was self-harming, often triggered by relationship endings, not the initiation of a relationship. Throughout his time in treatment, he's been hospitalized 3 times, yet he's been coping with his emotions for the past 2 months. So he's hospitalized 3 times, yet he's doing better in the last 2 months. He informs us that a girl is on a dating site that he met, and he feels like she wants to date him. So it's not him wanting to initiate the relationship, but he's saying that this person may be interested in him. So if we look at this, do we want to say, hey, what are the pros and cons of you engaging in this relationship? Or what is your perspective of dating this girl and the impact it could have on treatment? So based on that, we're going to rule out A. Why? Because he's saying that she wants to date him, not that he wants to date her. So exploring the pros and cons with him is essentially saying, hey, if this were the case, what would be the benefits and drawbacks? But we don't even know if he's interested in this relationship. So we're going to go with B, facilitate discussion around his perspective of dating this girl and the impact it could have on treatment. Why? Because if he says he feels like she wants to date him, does he want to date her? And if not, A-okay. However, if he does want to date her, we are going to bring up the fact that he is often going to be self-harming when relationships are going to end. So what are ways that we can prevent him from going to those coping skills and engaging in those behaviors and preventing a 4th hospitalization within his treatment process? So C's incorrect because we're assuming that the relationship is going to end even before it starts and assuming that he doesn't have the skills, even though he's been coping better. A is incorrect because it says that she wants to date him, not that he wants to date her. So B would give us an idea of what do you think about this and where do you want to go and what impact does this have? Do we need to ramp up coping skills, meetings, etc.? So the correct answer here is B, facilitate discussion around his perspective of dating this girl and the impact it could have on treatment. So that's how we look at that question in particular. Question 4. A social worker in a private practice is meeting with a 27-year-old male for a recent breakup that he had. The man reports that he has a history of drinking alcohol and becoming violent. His girlfriend told him to choose alcohol or her and that he was not able to stop drinking. The man reports that he has fleeting thoughts to hurt his girlfriend, but is unsure how he would do it. The man would like to identify ways to maintain sobriety and to improve his anger. What should the social worker do first to help the man? A, explore the man's previous violent actions to evaluate the severity of his homicidal thoughts. B, explore how the man would like to improve his anger and facilitate discussion around his previous episodes. C, provide the man information on anger management techniques and relapse prevention skills. D, facilitate discussion around the man's previous efforts to maintain sobriety and to reduce his anger. So let's break down the details a little bit further. We're a social worker in a private practice. That's who we are and where we are at, meeting with a 27-year-old male. So that is our client for a recent breakup that he had. So that's what we are working on. The man reports that he has a history of drinking alcohol and becoming violent. So it is previous behavior, not what's going on right now. His girlfriend told him to choose alcohol or her, and then he was not able to stop drinking. So the relationship was severed. The man reports he has fleeting thoughts to hurt his girlfriend, but is unsure how he would do it. The man would like to identify ways to maintain sobriety and to improve his anger. What should the social worker do first to help the man? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how you answer the question. This is an application question. Why? Because it's a client scenario that we have to react in the best way that we know how. So let's apply the acronym to each answer choice back to the question to see what we're looking at in particular. A, explore the man's previous violent actions to evaluate the severity of his homicidal thoughts. This is going to be safety assess. Safety, why? Because it's a potential safety issue. Assess, why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. B, explore how the man would like to improve his anger and facilitate discussion around his previous episodes. This one is going to be feelings. Why? Because it's us getting his direct perspective of what's going on with him for his situation. C, provide the man information on anger management techniques and relapse prevention skills. This is going to be an educate. Why? Because it's us providing information to him and he would be able to utilize that information in the session today. D, facilitate discussion around the man's previous efforts to maintain sobriety and to reduce his anger. This is going to be feelings. Why? Because it's getting his direct perspective of what's going on with and for the situation. Let's look back at the question to see what we're looking at in particular. So, quick review. Social worker, private practice. That's who we are. We're at 27-year-old male. That's our client. Recent breakup that he had. So, it's going to be our first meeting with the individual. It does not state that's his first meeting, but there's no lengths of time or anything in the information that he's providing is relatively fresh or than birth. The man reports that he has a history of drinking alcohol and becoming violent. So, we don't know if he's violent in the moment or consuming substances right now. His girlfriend told him to choose alcohol or her, and then he was not able to stop drinking. So we know that alcohol is on the forefront of the minds right now. The man reports he has fleeting thoughts to hurt his girlfriend, but is unsure how he would do it. I'm not a killer, but don't push me. The man would like to identify ways to maintain sobriety and to remove his anger, so keep all in mind. Let's go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out C. Why? Because we're not just going to jump into action and say, all right, it's our first session, but I can fix your problems right now. You want to identify ways to maintain sobriety and improve your anger? I got just what you need. Here's a generalization of pieces of information that you can just choose it and kind of move on, because again, we're kind of like overstepping and saying, all right, I got my cape on and I have what you need, when we are just getting to know this individual. We know that he has a history, so it's not current behavior, of drinking alcohol and becoming violent. However, we have no idea what his current behaviors are. So C is like, all right, just use these general anger management techniques and just stop drinking booze and everything is going to be all right and you're going to be able to cruise. Bad moves, bad vibes. We're also going to rule out A. Why? Because if we look closely at A, it is identifying the man's previous violent actions to evaluate the severity of his homicidal thoughts today. Would we ever psychoanalyze somebody's past in order to determine what they are going to do today? It could be helpful, but we're not going to assume and say, all right, I have a previous history of beating up everybody and pulling knives and stabbing people. And you're like, all right, so you're probably about to beat people up and stab somebody, so I'm putting you in the hospital. We never assume, never jump to conclusions, and what has happened in the past is not going to dictate what is going to happen in the future. We're just getting to know the individual, and he said it's a history of becoming violent and drinking alcohol. And he stated his girlfriend was like, choose alcohol or me, and he was like, I was not able to stop drinking. So we're not unaware of whether he's drinking or not at this given moment. In addition to that, we're also seeing that he has fleeting thoughts to hurt his girlfriend. So those would be homicidal ideations or thoughts, but he says that he does not know how he would do it, which would mean that the person has thoughts, but no plans means an intent, which would mean that we're not going to just jump and be like, all right, that is going to be the forefront of our minds, because everybody has the right to self-determination unless danger to self, suicidal ideations, plans means an intent, homicidal ideations, plans means an intent, and those things are not here because it says he has fleeting thoughts and not actual plans means an intent to actually carry out the thoughts that he's experiencing. So now we're in between B and D. B, explore how the man would like to improve his anger and facilitate discussion around his previous episodes. Or D, facilitate discussion around the man's previous efforts to maintain sobriety, introduce his anger. So let's flip it back into the question. We have a private practice, 27-year-old male, recent breakup. He has a history of drinking alcohol and becoming violent. We're not sure if it's going on right now. His girlfriend told him to choose alcohol or her. He was not able to stop drinking, so drinking was important to him. He has fleeting thoughts to hurt his girlfriend due to the breakup. He's not sure how he would do it, so thoughts without plans means an attempt, and he would like to identify ways to maintain sobriety and to improve his anger. So if we look closely in between the answers, D is talking about both sobriety and anger, while B is only talking about anger. So for that reason, we're going to rule out B, because we're assuming that his anger is the most important thing at this given moment. Even though you may say, well, he has fleeting thoughts to hurt the girlfriend, so he's likely going to hurt the girlfriend now. We don't know if he ever hurt the girlfriend because he has a history of drinking alcohol and becoming violent, but was he ever violent towards the girlfriend? He's not thinking, I'm not a killer, don't push me type mentality. We have to identify and meet the person where they're at, because it's our first time meeting them as well. So D is the correct answer. Facilitate discussion around the man's previous efforts to maintain sobriety, because we need to identify what is the person's baseline. Are there things that have worked for him in the past, or has he drank through the totality of his life and he's never had any sobriety at all? And to reduce his anger, because what better way to understand how we can help somebody than to build on what they've already done in the past versus trying to reinvent the wheel and tell him what he should be doing. A is going to be incorrect because they're not going to focus on the violent actions to determine if he's going to be homicidal today, because he told us he has fleeting thoughts, but no plans means an intent. So that's assuming, jumping to conclusions, getting ourselves riled and dialed up and going in with the buzzwords. Don't go with the buzzwords. You're not a bee. You're going to get stung. B is incorrect because it's only focused on half of what he wants to do. He wants to maintain sobriety and improve anger. B is saying anger is your most pressing concern, but we do not know that at this given moment. And then C is incorrect because it's jumping like a cat that got squirted with water and having our capes on trying to rescue somebody, and we're not going to do that because we aren't even really aware of where our client's coming from. So the correct answer here is D, facilitate discussion around the man's previous efforts to maintain sobriety, introduce his anger because he has a history of this. Is he currently doing this? What is he currently doing in relation to those things? And how can we help him identify ways to do that if we don't know where he's coming from or what baseline that he's bringing in? So the correct answer here is D, facilitate discussion around the man's previous efforts to maintain sobriety, introduce his anger. So that's how we look at that question in particular. Question 5. A social worker in a community mental health clinic has been working with a 44-year-old male for the past 6 months to help cope with his episodes of anger. At the beginning of treatment, the man was homeless and smoking crack. The man denied wanting housing resources because he's had bad experiences with them in the past. Throughout treatment, the man has been utilizing strategies to maintain sobriety and to better cope with his anger. 2 months ago, the man moved in with his girlfriend, and it helped further improve his situation. During the previous session, the man reported that he and his girlfriend have been arguing more recently. During the current session, the man reports his girlfriend broke up with him and he is homeless again because she kicked him out of her apartment. What should the social worker do first in this situation? A, validate the man's feelings and gather information regarding why he and his girlfriend broke up. B, gather information regarding how the man has been coping with the changes in his life. C, provide the man a list of homeless shelters that are available in the area to allow for him to secure stable housing. D, offer to connect the man with a housing specialist at the agency to allow for him to secure stable housing. So let's look back at the question and break it down a little bit further. Social worker, community mental health clinic. That's who we are and where we are at, working with a 44-year-old male. So that's our client for the past 6 months. You know, like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at to help cope with his episodes of anger. So that's what we've been doing for the past 6 months. At the beginning of treatment, you know, like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So going in the DeLorean, going back. So that was 6 months ago. The man was homeless and smoking crack. So that is his baseline for treatment. The man denied wanting housing resources because he's had bad experiences with them in the past. So that was during the intake assessment as well. Throughout treatment, you know, like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So for the past 6 months, the man has been utilizing strategies to maintain sobriety and to better cope with his anger. So things are getting better. 2 months ago, you know, like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. The man moved in with his girlfriend and helped further improve his situation. So things are going on the up and up. During the previous session, you know, like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So not right now, but what occurred before. The man reported that he and his girlfriend have been getting into arguments or arguing more recently. And during the current session, you know, like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So what's going on right now? The man reports that his girlfriend broke up with him and he is homeless again because she kicked him out of her apartment. So she was the one that was providing housing. What should the social worker do first in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how you answer the question. There's not a shortcut. There's nothing that is going to help you answer the question better than combining the answers back to the question to see what's going on with and for the situation. This is going to be an application question. Why? Because it's a client scenario that we have to react in the best way that we know how. So let's apply the acronym D, each answer choice back to the question to see what we're looking at. In particular, A, validate the man's feelings and gather information regarding why he and his girlfriend broke up. This is going to be an assess. Why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. B, gather information regarding how the man has been coping with the changes in his life. This is going to be an assess. Why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. C, provide the man a list of homeless shelters that are available in the area to allow for him to secure stable housing. This is going to be an advocate. Why? Because A equals all by themselves, because this is where the social worker is going to provide the needed information, resources, and services to the client, and is going to do it on his own. But this is also going to be bad moves, bad vibes, and we'll let the question determine that in just a second. D, offer to connect the man with a housing specialist at the agency to allow for him to secure stable housing. This is going to be a facilitate. Why? F equals a friend, because it's where we are going to be connecting somebody to another professional for assistance, and they are going to be getting their needs met. But this is also going to be a bad moves, bad vibes, and we'll let the question determine that in just a second. So let's look back at the question to see what we're looking at in particular. So quick review, social worker, community mental health clinic. That's we are where we're at, 44-year-old male, that's our client, past 6 months. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So 6 months, the cat has been coming in to help cope with his episodes of anger. So that's what his focus has been for the past 6 months at the beginning of the treatment. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So getting in the DeLorean and going back 6 months because that's the beginning of the treatment. The man was homeless, the man was homeless, the man was homeless, and smoking crack. The man denied wanting housing resources because he's had bad experiences with them in the past. So he's like, no thanks, no housing resources for me throughout treatment. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So for the past 6 months, the man has been utilizing strategies to maintain sobriety and to better cope with his anger. So things are going well. He's no longer smoking crack, no longer getting angry as much. 2 months ago, you don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So again, teleporting back, the man moved in with his girlfriend and to help further improve his situation. So for the past 2 months, he's been living with the girlfriend and things have been going well. During the previous session, you don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So the session just before the one that's going on right now, the man reported that he and his girlfriend have been arguing more recently. So it's a recent development during the current session. You don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. So what's going on right now, the man reports that his girlfriend broke up with him and he's homeless because she kicked him out of her apartment. So keep all in mind. Let's go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out C and D. Why? And I don't recommend often clumping things together and ruling them out super duper fast. However, in the question, it states the man denied wanting housing resources. So C and D are going to go against what our client has wanted because he's had a bad experience with them in the past. And even though that was 6 months ago, he's not going to change his perspective in the fact that he would want housing resources because this individual's like, I do not want housing resources. So C's and crackers were like, hey, let me give you a list of homeless shelters and everything is going to be a-okay. D is like, hey, let me connect you to a housing specialist when he did not want that throughout the treatment. And if we notice, it was only 2 months ago that he moved in with a girlfriend. So for 4 months of treatment, he was homeless and did not have stable housing. And no point in time during that moment did he say, hey, Phil, can I get some housing real quick? He denied it and has not wanted it ever since. So therefore, for 4 months of treatment, he didn't want housing resources. And 2 months ago, he moved in. And now if we're like, hey, do you want housing resources? We're going to invalidate and bulldoze our client when that's not what he is wanting in any way, shape, or form. Now we're in between A and B. A, validate the man's feelings and gather information regarding why he and his girlfriend broke up. Or B, gather information regarding how the man has been coping with the changes in his life. So if we flip it back into the question, he's been here 6 months. He's been coping with episodes of anger. He was homeless and smoking crack 6 months ago, denied wanting housing resources. He's been maintaining sobriety and better coping with his anger. So things have been going well. And then 2 months ago, he moved in with a girlfriend. And then he stated that he and his girlfriend have been arguing more recently. And now she kicked him out and that he is homeless again. So A is like, tell me what is going on with this breakup. So A is like, man, I'm so sorry that this is going on, but let's parse through some of these details that led to this breakup. Or B, tell me how you've been coping and what is going on and where you're at. And if we think about this, A, people are like, man, it should be feelings because we need to meet people where they're at. However, is the most important thing right now the breakup that he had with his girlfriend? Not necessarily. So A is going to be ruled out because we're not going to be like, hey, tell me about the breakup, because we don't even know if the client wants to focus on this breakup because he's homeless and she kicked him out of the apartment. And if this was a relationship that was going to be sustainable, she's not going to kick him out, let him be homeless for X amount of time, and then him be like, oh, please come back. Not going to be the case. And why we would go with B of gathering information how he's been coping, if we flick back into the question, his main coping skill before was smoking crack and anger. So therefore, we're going to identify, are you still using the skills that you've been using throughout treatment because things have been going well, or are you going back to crack use and have you gone back to becoming angry and lashing out at other people? So that's where, as we're breaking down the question, it's just not one detail in the question, it's all of the details mixed together. So the correct answer here is B, gather information regarding how the man has been coping with the changes in his life. A is incorrect because even though it's like, all right, I'm going to validate his feelings, would we ask about why he and his girlfriend broke up? It's not necessarily important because that's kind of like drama details that may not be relevant to the actual presentation of our client, because our client's treatment goal is anger and maintaining sobriety from crack. And at this moment, we're not going to be like, all right, tell me about the breakup, because it does not really matter as much to our client unless our client wants to discuss it. C is incorrect because he denied wanting housing resources, and us giving him a list of homeless shelters is bad moves, bad vibes. D offered to connect him with a housing specialist for the same exact reason of him not wanting housing resources. And C and D are having us wear a cape and say, you're homeless, I got your back. But everybody has the right to self-determination. And unless he has a vulnerable individual, child or elder, or somebody with an intellectual or cognitive disability with him, or that he falls within those categories, he has the right to be homeless if he wants to. So based on that, we have to stay where our client is, not add, not assume, not have our capes on, not get ourselves riled and dialed up, but truly stay where our clients are at. So the correct answer here is B, gather information regarding how the man has been coping with the changes in his life, so that way we get a baseline for treatment, because his old coping skills were anger and crack. So we're not just going to jump and say, all right, let's focus on something that's not going to be actually meeting you where you're at and going to be jumping and kind of providing a solution. So the correct answer here is B, gather information regarding how the man has been coping with the changes in his life. So that's how we look at that question in particular. And as I always say, do not harp on how many questions you get right versus how many you get wrong, but trying to learn from every single question. Don't go with the buzzwords, first, next, best, most, all these different things, only reading the last sentence, but truly actually combining what you see inside of the question with what is actually there, and not getting yourself in that mode of like, all right, I'm just going to jump like a cat that got squirted with water, or I'm going to get myself riled and dialed up. So hopefully those questions were helpful, helped you push yourself to become the best possible version. And as I always say, do not let one thought, one situation, one person, or anything take you outside of what you know to be true. You need anything from me, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. Keep striving, keep driving, keep doing the next right thing. Hope to see you in the one-day course. Hope to see you in the individual tutoring, Sunday study groups, or anything. But at the very least, keep doing the next right thing. And if somebody's making you feel bad about it, or you're beating up on yourself, take a step back and identify what is needed right now and how can I help myself get to that next level to become the best possible version of myself. Because you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Whether you think that you're doing the right thing or not, you'll know after you get the results of what you've done. But don't live a life that you're kind of regretting or having to resent and saying, what if I would have done? Don't live in that mode, but live in the mode of I'm doing the next right thing and I'm going to become the best possible version of myself. Take care, be safe, keep building yourself up, keep looking out for yourself, keep doing everything that you can. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. I love you guys. You need anything, drop me a shout, but I'm getting the heck out of here. I'll see you guys around in peace. Out, guys.